Hey everybody, it's April 1st, 2024, and I'm not going to try to do any sort of April Fool's joke with you, in part because that takes a lot of time and planning and energy, and as I'm going to be talking about in a minute in this update video, I haven't had a lot of those available in the last few weeks. So this is my update video for April, in which I'll talk about what we've got coming up in April, but I'll also let you know what went on in March, some things you might have missed, some things that might have fallen by the wayside that you might want to check out. Links to everything that I'm discussing you can find below in the video description. Sometimes it's under Show More. And I always like to begin by highlighting three big things. So the three that I actually have this month I'm pretty excited about. Big thing number one, I am teaching another online section of this class, this 8-week class that I have taught several times already, Aristotle on the moral virtues, somebody who I've done a lot of work on. I've taught probably at least 1,000 students at this time. So we have a new section of that starting on April 13th, meeting on Saturdays. Tell you more about that in the section on April. Big thing number two, you're probably aware that I started a Substack and I've been doing some writing and posting in it from time to time. I'm going to be expanding that Substack and adding paid subscriber options. So link to that is below. There'll be some cool perks for people who are paid subscribers and some exclusive articles and things like that. Big thing number three is kind of connected to that. So for quite a long time, people have, been asking me about podcasting. I started the Sadler's Lectures podcast a long time ago. I've done over 1,000 episodes of that, but that's not completely original content. I am going to be starting a new podcast, but it's going to be a perk for my Patreon supporters and also for paid Substack subscribers at certain levels in Patreon. And it's going to be fairly short episodes focused on key ideas, distinctions, practices in philosophy that you can apply within the scope of your life. Now, here's the exciting part about it, and I'll talk more about this also in the April section. I haven't named it yet. I'm actually going to be looking for suggestions about what to call it. And I may, if somebody has a really good one, something catchy, I may in fact use that, and I'll give them an acknowledgement as well about it. But those are the three big things ahead for April. All right, so let's talk about March. And usually I begin by talking about events that I did, but this time I'm going to begin with something different. And you probably already know about this, but it's, something that was, kind of overshadowed half of the month. So I had surgery, and it was to have my gallbladder removed. It had been giving me pain since August. And, as these medical things are, it's a very common surgery. It's actually considered elective. So it takes you a while to go through all the steps that you got to do and jump through all the hoops to get it. And I wanted to go with somebody who I knew was a good surgeon, and their schedules book up way in advance. So anyway, long story short, I went under the proverbial knife in the month of March. And as I mentioned in a video that I did about this, I think I underestimated the amount of recovery that's required and the trauma to the body. And I thought I'd get back to work right away. That didn't actually happen. And I am recovering from it. It's going along okay. Things are healing up, but it takes a lot longer. And there's a bit more tiredness and lack of energy than I had originally banked upon. So that's something that's been going on. That meant I got a lot less done in March than I had hoped to. I had to postpone some events, including even some class sessions, right? So I didn't get to some of the things that I had planned, which I will be doing in April instead. What I did get to, of course, I did my monthly AMA that I kicked the month off with. That was no problem. We also had classic metal class. Me and Scott Terulli looked at Japanese metal, and we had a great class session about that, the video of which is available, linked to below. We had Worlds of Speculative Fiction, and this time we focused on the first 4 books in the massive series of Jim Butcher's Dresden Files, and those were actually very enjoyable. I'm looking forward to going back to those again. So those we got through, and then I had the surgery, and then everything got put off after that. And now I am teaching right now 4 classes, 2 of which are academic classes for Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design, Existentialist Philosophy and Literature, and Religions of the World. And I also had running 2 of my own online classes that are enrolled in the Study with Sadler Academy, one Ancient Philosophers on Friendship, the other Stoics on the Cardinal Virtues. And I had to delay the class sessions for those, but we were started up again. So we're finishing those up this coming month. And that's been, demanding a good bit of time. There's grading, there's interacting with students. I also did tutorial sessions, some philosophical counseling work, and some consulting work as well, though I had to back off on some of it. And I did a lot of video work this month, many of which you've probably seen. Core concept videos. I finished up the series on Franz Kafka's Metamorphosis, and I actually took a detour. I had originally planned to do different content, but I enjoyed the class sessions on Plutarch and what he has to say about friendship so much that I decided to make some core concept videos on those really cool texts. So I did 3 core concept videos on the short text on having many friends, which Plutarch thinks you really can't. And then I did 9 on how to tell a flatterer from a friend. A very important text, I think. I did 2 ideas that matter interviews, one with Todd Kreis, who's actually local here at the Koch-Merrick Center up in Grafton for human performance, and then one with the founder of the American Philosophical Practitioners Association, author Lou Marinoff, talking about philosophical counseling. And I dug up some old footage and then, edited it and released it for a talk that I gave like 1 million years ago on Plato's Dialogues and Active Learning. And, boosted the sound as much as I could. There's only so much I could do. And actually, that's when I first started recording things, and one of my colleagues was using a flip cam and actually tilted it from side to side. So there's a bit of editorial stuff in there. I had the occasion to do an unboxing video early in the month. One of my correspondents sent me a gift pack of 24 cans of non-alcoholic beer. And so, we looked at that. That was kind of fun. More about that in the April part. I did a Wisdom for Life show with my co-host, Dan. We talked more about AI and AI text generators and ethical issues that are involved. I did a quick takes video because I was finding that some of my correspondents and students and viewers were expressing concerns about taking too much time to read a philosophical text. And my advice was, well, it takes the time that it takes, and you don't need to let other people dictate your schedule or make you feel bad about that. And I also got around to shooting a new fake quotes video, this time on Friedrich Nietzsche. So I strayed out of ancient philosophy, where I've been for a while, into the modern period, and I'll be doing some more of these as time goes on as well. And then I did one book review, which I finished at the very end of the month, on Will Johncock's Beyond the Individual, which is about Stoic philosophy. And I did manage to get to a couple Sadler's stories. I told a story about how I wound up tutoring and becoming a lot of friends with a lot of Chinese students, primarily from Taiwan, but also Hong Kong and mainland China while I was in college. And then I discovered that somebody who I'd been friends with many, many years ago actually died a few years back. And so I did a Sadler Stories talking about SIG and about the Rosetta News store that he ran in Carbondale, Illinois for a while before it finally went under during one of the recessions. So a lot of video work. And I also did a good bit of podcast work. I tallied up the number of episodes. I didn't get quite so much done this month as in previous months, but I did manage to release 16 episodes on Immanuel Kant's Prolegomena to Any Future Metaphysics in the Sadler's Lectures podcast. So that's kind of cool, giving people resources to help them understand this great philosophical text that is so difficult. Understandably so, because Kant makes it difficult, even though he says he's making it easier for so many people. So that's what went on in March. So what is going on in April other than continual healing and getting out and doing some light exercise, like taking walks and teaching classes and all that? Well, we've got some events lined up. All of these are online events, and they are all, the times I'm going to give you, in Central Daylight Time. So if you're in a different time zone, which you probably are, you want to put them on your calendar and adjust for the time difference. And so what do we have? Well, on the 6th, kicking the month off at noon, we'll begin with our Ask Me Anything session, where you can pop in, ask me questions about philosophy, literature, politics, music, whatever it is that you want. Some people ask for advice, and I try to do my best in giving them some. After that, at 2 p.m., we will be having our philosophy chat for Patreon supporters, and that's always a fun conversation. If you're interested in becoming a supporter, well, the link is below, and you can check that out. On the 13th, we've got two things coming up. And the first of them is that online class that I mentioned, Aristotle on the Moral Virtues, will be kicking off. That'll be our first class session. We're going to talk about virtue and vice in general. It goes for about 90 minutes, sometimes goes a little bit longer if students have a lot of questions, which typically is the case. And it's very interactive. I do some lecture, we do some discussion, question and answer. So if you want to learn about Aristotle and the moral virtues, Nicomachean Ethics books 2 through 6, you might want to sign up for the class, because it is going to be a great learning experience. Later on that afternoon at noon, we will be having Worlds of Speculative Fiction. And this time around, this is a series by Chelsea Quinn Yarbro, the St. Germain cycle. We'll be looking at just the first 3 books, because again, sort of like the Dresden Files, she wrote a ton of books in this series. And this was actually suggested to me by a longtime participant in Worlds of Speculative Fiction, both when it was hosted in Brookfield and now that it's hosted online, my friend Joanne. And boy, these books are really quite interesting. So we'll be talking about those. On the 20th, another Saturday at noon, Scott and I will be getting together and doing the next classic metal class. This time we're going to be talking about, you could call it a classification issue. There are bands and performers who are identified as being heavy metal, but they have said, we're not heavy metal, or I don't do heavy metal. Heavy metal is something different. So we're going to look at the claims that they make, at the different senses of the term that they're using, and why and whether they're correct in saying that even though people think that they're playing heavy metal, they're not heavy metal. So very interesting philosophical topic that we'll be illuminating. On the 21st, the next day at 2 p.m., we will have something that was put off from this last month. I'll be doing another self-directed study video premiere with live chat, and this time it will have to do with studying Thomas Aquinas' works. So we're doing another medieval period thinker. I didn't get to that last month in part because I just didn't have the energy to shoot the videos after the surgery. And then we'll finish out the month with another thing like that. We also put off the Understanding Anger 2.0 session. That is me presenting about a particular thinker and text, and then we have, live chat going on so the audience can weigh in, ask questions, leave comments. That'll be happening on the 27th at 12 p.m. And the person that we're going to look at this time is Cicero. So he has quite a few interesting things to say about anger from his rather eclectic perspective, informed by the Aristotelians, the Stoics, the skeptics, and a few other people as well. So I hope you can join me for some of these online events. I'm going to be, as I mentioned, starting this Aristotle class. If you're interested in that, there is tuition for the class, but people who sign up for it say, wow, this is really worth signing up for, and you get a lot of value for what you put into it. So that's one of the big things that'll be coming up. The other things that I had mentioned earlier as the three big things, I'd like to talk about them a bit. So, Substack, that is a newsletter, but it also allows you to do blogging. I do writing in there, providing, some philosophical resources, taking ideas that come from the text that I'm teaching or reading or working on and writing about them so people can actually use those to improve their understanding or improve their relationships or understand their lives and careers and stuff like that. I am going to start offering paid subscriptions in there, which means that those people will get all of the articles as they're coming out. The free ones will have to wait for some of the articles, and they'll also get access to all of the podcast episodes as they come out. So, that brings me to the podcast. I have this idea for a podcast that'll have, episodes going from, 5 to maybe 15 minutes tops, so fairly short, and they will be specifically about ideas in philosophical texts that you can take and apply within the scope of your life. So it's kind of applied philosophy, philosophy as a way of life, and I don't yet have a really nice, snazzy, short title for it. So that's what I'm looking for, some insight and feedback. And I'm going to put something in my Substack specifically about that, soliciting people's suggestions about that. And if I really, really like somebody's suggestion, well, I will use that name for it and I'll give them credit on that, right? So those are some of the big things going on. I should also talk very briefly about the videos and podcast episodes that I have planned for this month. So I only got one book review done last month, and I had wanted to get more done because I've got a lot of books piled up and people still sending me books. So this month, I'm going to crank out book reviews. That's a goal for this month. I'd like to get at least one done per week, And if I can get more of them done, more of these books off my docket, well, then it may be a month of many, many book reviews. We'll see how that works. I also want to do a fake quotes video, and I solicited suggestions. People gave me lots of great ideas for who I might do next. I want to keep that rolling as well. I'll do some personal videos most likely, and some more Sadler stories videos. And I do have another quick take video kind of, percolating in my mind, having to do with, getting terminology right and letting people, give you a hard time about that. Core concept videos for my existentialism class. I need to crank out a few on Frantz Fanon that I never got to. I have a one specific core concept video that has been commissioned for quite a while that I just haven't gotten around to, that I want to get to early this month on Deleuze and Guattari's notion of the body without organs. And then I'm hoping to get to some core concept videos on Albert Camus, also for my existentialism class. But I also am hoping to do some speculative fiction studies videos. I've had some texts that I've wanted to get to for a while. And if I get really, really ambitious, this kind of depends on how much energy I have, how well I recover from this surgery, I'm hoping to do my first beer review video reviewing a non-alcoholic beer, because that's what I drink, because I switched to that a while back. And if I get the time to practice and I figure out how I want to record it, which is a little bit tricky, I would like to start shooting some videos of me playing cover tunes on my banjo and singing. And that's the challenge, right? You got the banjo, you got the singing, you need to balance these things out so they sound okay. Plus, you got to do the practice so that you get the song right, and haven't had a lot of time to practice lately. So we'll see if I get to those. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. Podcast, I got a lot more Kant, Prolegomena podcast episodes to do. That'll probably take me through the month, but if I do manage to get through all of those, my next big project is to go back to speculative fiction studies and start converting some of those videos on Ursula K. Le Guin's wonderful novel Tahanu into podcast episodes in the Sadler's Lectures podcast. So we'll see if that's feasible. All of this depends on a lot of different factors. But that's what I'm hoping to do this month. So I hope that you can join me for some of these online events, that you consider enrolling in the Aristotle and the Moral Virtues class, and you check out all the great content that I've either done or got coming towards you, if it is good stuff for you and useful and interesting. So have a great month, and I will see you somewhere in the interwebs.